Admiral Du-hyun stared at the screen in his observation room. His eyes moved over the numbers again and again. Something was wrong with the data about Earth's sun. He had been watching this solar system for 5 years now, and this was the first time he had seen anything like this. "Lieutenant Jae-yun, come look at these readings," he called to his assistant. The young officer walked quickly to his desk, her uniform neat as always. "What is it, Admiral?" she asked, leaning over to look at the screen. Her eyes widened as she saw the numbers. "The sun's quantum patterns," Du-hyun said, pointing to the changing figures. "They're not random anymore. See these repeating sequences? This isn't natural." Jae-yun pulled up a chair and started typing quickly. More data appeared on the screen. "Sir, I'm comparing these patterns with our records from the last 5 years. The changes started 3 months ago, but they were too small to notice at first." Do-hyun rubbed his chin. The humans of Earth were supposed to be a young civilization. They had only reached their moon and sent a few robots to nearby planets. The Galactic Empire watched them, but didn't think they were important. Primitive species were common in the galaxy. But this was impossible. "Someone is playing with the sun's quantum field," he said quietly. "They're making tiny adjustments, probably testing something." He stood up and walked to the large window of his observation station. From here, he could see the bright dot that was Earth's sun, looking harmless and ordinary. Jae-yun was still working at the computer. "Admiral, should I send a report to High Command?" Do-hyun almost laughed. "They won't believe it. No civilization has ever managed to control a star. The Empire has tried for thousands of years without success." He turned back to his assistant. "But we have to tell them anyway. This is too important to ignore." They spent the next 3 hours preparing their report. They included all the data, graphs, and comparisons. Do-hyun knew it had to be perfect. Even then, High Command would probably dismiss it. As he finished the report, a new alert appeared on his screen. Jae-yun gasped. "Admiral, the quantum patterns, they're changing faster now." Do-hyun rushed back to the main screen. The numbers were dancing now, changing in clear patterns. This wasn't a test anymore. Whoever was controlling the sun was doing something bigger. "Send the report now," he ordered. "Mark it as highest priority." Jae-yun sent the report, her fingers shaking slightly. "What do you think they're trying to do, sir?" Do-hyun shook his head slowly. "I don't know. But I do know this. We were wrong about Earth. Very wrong." He looked out the window again at the distant sun. "A species that can control a star. They're not primitive at all." The response from High Command came just minutes later. Do-hyun read it and sighed. Just as he expected. They didn't believe him. The message was short. "Continue monitoring. Do not spread alarm about impossible phenomena." "They think we made a mistake," Jae-yun said, reading the message over his shoulder. "Yes," Do-hyun replied. "And that might be the biggest mistake of all." He sat down at his desk and started a new file. "We'll keep watching, Lieutenant, and we'll record everything. Because soon, very soon, the Empire won't be able to ignore this anymore." In the darkness of space, Earth's sun continued to shine, looking exactly as it had for billions of years. But now, deep in its quantum heart, changes were happening. Changes that would shake the galaxy's greatest power to its core. Dr. Hansol stood in the control room of the Pacific Deep facility, watching the numbers on the giant screen change. Her life's work was finally showing results. The solar manipulation project was working better than anyone had hoped. "The quantum field is responding perfectly," Professor Ta-won said from his station. He had worked with Hansol for 15 years on this project. His hair had turned gray during their long research, but his eyes still showed the same excitement as when they started. Hansol walked to the main control panel. The room was deep under the Pacific Ocean, hidden from the world. Only a few hundred people knew this place existed. The walls were thick metal, and the computers hummed quietly around them. "Start the next test sequence," she ordered. The team of scientists began typing at their stations. On the big screen, a model of the sun glowed brightly. Small dots of light showed where they were changing its quantum field. Remember when everyone said this was impossible? Taiwan smiled as he worked. They said we couldn't control a star, that it would take more energy than Earth had. Hansol nodded. They didn't understand the quantum web theory. She touched a screen, adjusting some numbers. We don't need to use force. We just need to understand how the quantum field works. Like playing a huge instrument. The door opened, and Director Kang walked in. He looked worried, as usual. Dr. Hansol, we've detected some unusual signals from deep space. Something is watching us. The aliens we saw 10 years ago? Hansol asked. Everyone in the facility knew about the strange ships they had detected. Ships that watched Earth from far away, thinking humans couldn't see them. Yes, Director Kang said. They're paying more attention now. They must have noticed what we're doing. Hansol wasn't surprised. Good, she said. It's time they learned that Earth isn't as simple as they think. She turned to the main screen again. Start the power increase. Let's show them what we can really do. The team worked carefully, their fingers moving over the controls. The quantum field around the sun began to change faster. Hansol watched the numbers closely. Everything had to be perfect. One small mistake could cause big problems. Field strength at 20%, Taiwan reported. Everything is stable. 30%. Another scientist called out. Hansol felt her heart beat faster. They had never gone this high before. The sun's quantum field was responding to their commands, like a giant machine waking up. 40%. 50%. Director Kang stepped closer to Hansol. Are you sure about this? He whispered. Maybe we should wait. We've waited long enough, Hansol said firmly. Humanity needs to be ready. Those ships up there, they're not just watching us for fun. Sooner or later, they'll come. We need to show them we're not weak. The power levels kept rising. On another screen, Hansol could see the quantum changes spreading through the sun. Soon, they would be able to control its energy completely. Not to hurt anyone, but to protect Earth. Power at maximum test level, Taiwan announced. The field is stable. We did it. The room burst into quiet applause. These scientists had worked for years, keeping their work secret, knowing that humanity's future might depend on it. Hansol looked at the model of the sun on the screen. Such a simple thing, to change the quantum field of a star, but it would change everything. The watchers in space would see it. They would know that Earth was no longer a simple, primitive world. Send the test results to the Security Council, she told Director Kang. Tell them we're ready for the next phase. She smiled at her team. It's time to let the galaxy know that humanity has grown up. In the deep ocean facility, hidden from the world, Earth's greatest secret was now ready. The power to control a star was in human hands, and somewhere in space, Admiral Du-hyun was about to discover just how right he had been. Supreme Commander Yoon Seok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Star Destroyer Eternal Dawn. The Earth grew larger on the main screen as his fleet approached. 500 ships, the largest fleet the Empire had sent to welcome a new world in 300 years. All ships in position, his second-in-command reported. We're ready to begin the welcome ceremony. Yoon Seok nodded. He had done this many times before. Show the primitive world their power, accept their surrender, and welcome them into the Empire's protection. It was always the same. Send the first message, he ordered. Let them see our glory. The message went out in all Earth languages. People of Earth, the Galactic Empire welcomes you. We bring peace and progress. Accept our rule and join the greatest civilization in the galaxy. On Earth, in the Pacific Deep Facility, Dr. Hansol watched the alien ships appear. They filled the sky like silver stars. She turned to Director Kang and nodded. They came sooner than we expected. Start the shield. The director pressed a button on his console. Deep under the ocean, The quantum machines hummed louder. The sun's energy flowed through their systems, invisible but powerful. Back on the eternal dawn, Seok waited for Earth's response. When none came, he frowned. Send the demonstration. Show them a small taste of our power. 10 ships fired their energy weapons at once. Green beams of light shot toward Earth, aimed at empty areas in the oceans. They were meant to show the Empire's strength without causing harm. But something strange happened. The beams hit what looked like clear air and stopped. They didn't reach the ocean. They didn't even reach the atmosphere. What's happening? Seok demanded. Report. His science officer looked confused. Sir, there's some kind of shield around the planet. But that's impossible. Their technology is too primitive for planetary shields. Fire again, full power. The ships fired again. Hundreds of energy beams hit the invisible shield. Nothing happened. The shield glowed slightly but stayed strong. Then a message came from Earth. On the screen, a woman appeared. It was Dr. Hansol. Galactic Empire, she said calmly. We see you're welcome, but Earth does not need your protection. We have our own power. Seok stepped forward. This is impossible. Your world has barely reached space. You can't have shields this strong. Hansol smiled. You watched us for years but saw only what you expected to see. While you watched our rockets, we learned to control the quantum field of our sun. Your weapons are strong, but they can't match the power of a star. The Supreme Commander's face turned red with anger. No one speaks to the Empire this way. We offer peace, but we can bring more. Look at your sensors, Hansol replied. Really look. Your weapons didn't even make our shield flicker. We don't want war, Commander. We want peace, as equals, not as servants. On his ship, Admiral Do-hyun watched all this happen. He had been brought along as a science advisor. Now he stepped forward. Supreme Commander, she's right. Their shield, it's using power directly from their sun. We've never seen anything like this. Seok stood silent for a long moment. His fleet, the pride of the Empire, hung powerless in space. Their strongest weapons had failed. And on the screen, the Earth scientist waited calmly for his response. We will discuss this with the Imperial Council, he said finally. His voice shook with anger. As the transmission ended, Do-hyun looked at Earth through the window. The planet looked peaceful, beautiful, and now very dangerous. The Empire had come to show its power, but instead they had found something new. A young world that had learned to harness the power of its own star. In the Pacific facility, Hansol watched the alien fleet. They'll be back, she said quietly. But next time, they'll know that Earth isn't a primitive world anymore. We're ready for them. 3 days after the Empire's failed show of force, Dr. Hansol received an urgent message. The Imperial ships had not left Earth's orbit. Instead, more ships arrived every hour. The Empire was gathering its strength. They're planning something, Professor Ta-won said, looking at the space radar screens. That's their entire third fleet up there now. Hansol watched the dots on the screen multiply. She had expected this. The Empire wouldn't accept defeat easily. She picked up her secure phone and called the World Security Council. It's time, she said. We need to show them what we can really do. In space, Admiral Do-hyun noticed something strange on his instruments. The quantum field readings from Earth's sun were changing rapidly. He rushed to Supreme Commander Seok's command room. Sir, you need to see this, he said, showing his datapad. The humans are doing something with their sun again. Seok barely looked at the readings. He was busy planning his next move. Their shields are strong, but they can't stop our entire fleet. We'll show them what happens when. He stopped talking. The light in the room had changed. Everyone on the bridge looked out the windows. The sun looked different. Sir, a junior officer called out, his voice shaking. The sun, It's moving. Do-hyun checked his instruments again. Not just moving. They're controlling it perfectly, adjusting its position by exactly 1 light minute. The entire Imperial fleet watched in silence as Earth's sun shifted position. It moved smoothly, precisely, like a dancer following careful steps. Then it returned to its original place, settling back as if it had never moved. A message came through on all channels. It was Dr. Hansol again. "People of the Empire," she said calmly, "what you just saw was a small demonstration. Moving a star by 1 light minute is simple for us. We could move it much further. We could even send it dancing through your fleet. But we don't want to show off. We just want you to understand." Yoon Seok's face had turned pale. "This is impossible. No one can move a star." "You keep using that word. Impossible," Hansol continued. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider what's possible. Earth wants peace, Commander. Real peace, not surrender. Think carefully about your next move." The transmission ended. Do-hyun looked at his commander. "Sir, if they can control their sun like this, they could destroy our entire fleet in seconds." Yoon Seok finished. His voice was quiet now. All his anger had turned to fear. In the Pacific facility, Hansol watched the Imperial ships through their quantum sensors. Director Kang stood beside her. "Will they leave?" he asked. "No," Hansol replied. "But they'll think twice before attacking. And that gives us time." "Time for what?" She smiled slightly. "Time to show them something even more interesting. The sun isn't our only project." On her screen, more data appeared. It showed quantum field changes in stars across the galaxy. Small changes that no one had noticed. Changes that Earth had been making for years, preparing for this moment. The Empire thought they had found a primitive world. Instead, they had woken something far more powerful. And this was just the beginning. In his observation room, Admiral Do-hyun understood first. The movement of Earth's sun wasn't just a warning shot. It was an announcement to the galaxy. Humanity had mastered powers that the Empire had never dreamed of. And they were ready to use them. The Imperial Council chamber was silent. 1,000 council members from across the galaxy sat in the great circular room, watching the recording of Earth's sun moving through space. When the recording ended, the silence continued. Representative Minji stood up. She was young for a council member, but today her voice was firm. "Honorable Council, we can no longer ignore Earth. They have achieved something we thought impossible." Supreme Commander Yoon Seok shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The failure of his fleet still burned in his mind. "They are still primitives," he argued. "This must be a trick." Admiral Do-hyun stepped forward with his datapad. "No trick, Commander. I have studied Earth for 5 years. We made a serious mistake. While we watched their simple rockets and satellites, they were working on something far more advanced." He pressed a button, and new images appeared on the huge screens. "Look at their quantum technology. Look at their understanding of stellar physics. We missed all of it because we expected to see a primitive world." Minji nodded. "The Admiral is right. And there's more." She showed her own data. "Earth has been launching small quantum probes for 20 years. We thought they were just simple research devices. We were wrong." The council members whispered among themselves. An older member stood up. "What do you mean, Representative Minji?" "Those probes carried quantum field generators," she explained. "Earth has been studying stars across our galaxy. They probably know more about stellar physics than we do." The whispers turned to worried murmurs. Supreme Commander Yoon Seok stood up again. "Then we must act now. We can't let them threaten the Empire." "Threaten?" Minji's voice was sharp. "They haven't threatened anyone. They only defended themselves when our fleet tried to force them to surrender. They even put their sun back exactly where it was." Admiral Do-hyun stepped forward again. "Council members, I believe Earth wants peace, but they want peace as equals, not as subjects. This is something new for us." The council chamber grew quiet again. For 10,000 years, the Empire had been the greatest power in the galaxy. They met new civilizations, showed their power, and added them to the Empire. It was simple. It was normal. But now, Minji spoke again. We have two choices. We can fight a war we might not win, against a power we don't understand. Or we can try something new. Real diplomacy, with a civilization that has earned our respect. The council members looked at each other. Some nodded slowly. Others frowned. In all their history, they had never faced this situation. There's something else, Admiral Duhyun added. Earth's quantum field technology. It could help the Empire. Think of what we could learn from working together. In the back of the chamber, an emergency message appeared on a screen. More Imperial colonies were asking for independence, inspired by Earth's defiance. The Empire's perfect control was starting to crack. Supreme Commander Yoon Seok saw the message and his face darkened. But before he could speak, Minji made a formal proposal. I move that we send a real diplomatic mission to Earth, not to demand surrender, but to talk as equals. The vote would take hours. The Empire's future hung in balance. And somewhere in the Pacific Deep facility, Dr. Hansol and her team watched and waited, ready for whatever the Empire would decide. Ambassador Sung-ho walked into the grand meeting room on the Imperial diplomatic ship. The room sparkled with golden decorations and floating lights. 5 Imperial representatives waited at the long table. Behind them, Earth could be seen through the huge windows. Dr. Hansol followed the ambassador, carrying a small silver case. They took their seats across from the Imperial team. Admiral Duhyun sat on the Imperial side, watching them carefully. Welcome, Earth representatives, the lead Imperial diplomat said. We are here to discuss terms for Earth's entry into the Empire's protection. Sung-ho smiled politely. No, we are here to discuss a partnership between equals. Those are very different things. The Imperial diplomats looked surprised. Even after everything that had happened, they still expected Earth to accept their rule. Perhaps you don't understand the Empire's position, another diplomat said. We protect 1,000 worlds. We bring peace and order to the galaxy. We understand perfectly, Sung-ho replied. He nodded to Dr. Hansol. She opened her silver case and took out a small device. When she turned it on, a hologram appeared above the table. The hologram showed hundreds of stars. Small dots of light moved between them. These are Earth's quantum probes, Hansol explained. We've been sending them out for 20 years. Admiral Duhyun leaned forward. Those are the research probes we detected. Yes, but they weren't just for research. Hansol pressed a button. Now some of the stars in the hologram pulsed with gentle light. Each probe carried a quantum field generator. Each generator is connected to its star, just like we're connected to our sun. The room grew very quiet. The Imperial diplomats stared at the hologram. Dozens of stars, scattered across their empire, all under Earth's influence. You're bluffing, one diplomat said, but his voice shook. Sung-ho shook his head. Earth doesn't bluff. We moved our sun to show you what we can do. Would you like to see another demonstration? He nodded to Hansol. She pressed another button. In the hologram, one star flickered slightly. On the room's other screens, urgent messages appeared. A star near the Empire's capital world had shifted position, just a tiny bit, then returned to normal. The Imperial diplomats rushed to check their data pads. Admiral Duhyun stayed calm, watching Earth's representatives with new respect. 20 years of preparation. Sung-ho said quietly. While you thought we were primitive, we were building a network across your empire. Not to threaten you, but to make sure you would listen when the time came. What do you want? The lead diplomat asked. His voice was different now. The arrogance was gone. What we've always wanted. Peace, partnership, a chance to share knowledge. Sung-ho leaned forward. Earth can teach you how to use quantum field technology. Together, we could do amazing things. Hansol added, Your scientists have tried to understand stars for thousands of years. We learned to talk to them, to work with them. Imagine what we could achieve together." Admiral Du-hyun spoke for the first time. "They're right. This is an opportunity, not a threat. Earth has shown wisdom as well as power." The meeting continued for hours. Slowly, the Imperial diplomats began to understand. Earth wasn't going to surrender, but they also weren't going to fight. They were offering something the Empire had never considered: a true partnership between equals. Supreme Commander Yoon Seok paced in his office on the Imperial capital world. Reports kept coming in from across the Empire. 10 more colony worlds had demanded independence. His hand shook as he read each message. "This is Earth's fault," he said to his advisors. "Their defiance is spreading like a disease through our empire." A young officer entered the room with another report. "Sir, the Centauri systems are now asking for independent status too. They say if Earth can stand up to us, so can they." Yoon Seok slammed his fist on his desk. "Send the fleet. We'll show them what happens to rebels." "We can't, sir," the officer said quietly. "Most of our ships are still watching Earth, and—" He paused, nervous about delivering the next news. "Some of our colony worlds have Earth's quantum technology now. They're learning to control their own stars." Meanwhile, in a quiet meeting room, Admiral Du-hyun sat with Dr. Hansol. They had been working together for days, sharing knowledge about quantum physics and stellar engineering. "Your understanding of stars is amazing," Du-hyun said, looking at Earth's research data. "The Empire's scientists focused on controlling stars through force. You found a completely different way." Hansol nodded. "Stars are alive, in their own way. You can't control them with force. You have to learn their patterns, work with them." She showed him more data on her screen. "Look at this. Every star has its own quantum signature, like a fingerprint. If we shared this knowledge throughout the galaxy," Du-hyun started, "every world could power itself." Hansol finished. "No more energy shortages. No more fighting over resources." Their quiet discussion was interrupted by an urgent call. Representative Minji appeared on the screen, looking worried. "Admiral, Dr. Hansol, we have a problem," she said. "Supreme Commander Yoon Seok is planning something dangerous. He's ordered all available ships to gather near Earth." Hansol stayed calm. "How many ships?" "Over 2,000, Minji replied. "He's desperate to prove the Empire's power hasn't weakened." Do-hyun stood up. "This is madness. Doesn't he understand? Earth could destroy those ships in seconds if they wanted to." "Earth won't destroy anyone," Hansol said firmly. "We'll show him a better way." She pressed some buttons on her computer, sending commands through Earth's quantum network. Across the galaxy, stars began to pulse with soft light. Not moving, not threatening, just showing their connection to Earth's quantum field. The display lasted for 1 minute. In his office, Yoon Seok watched his screens as reports flooded in. Every major system in the Empire had seen the demonstration. Earth's message was clear. They could reach anywhere, affect anything. But they chose peace. The Supreme Commander sat heavily in his chair. His plan for a show of force now seemed foolish. How could ships fight against someone who could control the stars themselves? Representative Minji used this moment to call an emergency council session. The Empire needed to change, she argued. The old ways of force and control had to end. As the council debated, Earth's quantum network continued its quiet work. Dr. Hansol and Admiral Du-hyun kept sharing knowledge, building bridges between two civilizations. The balance of power wasn't just shifting, it was transforming into something entirely new. 3 months after Earth's final demonstration of power, the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Today would change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Sung-ho and Dr. Hansol walked down the central aisle. Behind them came Admiral Du-hyun, now wearing the new uniform of the Imperial Science Council. The old imperial flags had been replaced with new ones, showing a star surrounded by many worlds. Supreme Commander Yoon Seok was no longer in power. After his failed attempt to gather ships against Earth, the Imperial Council had removed him. Now he watched from a quiet corner as his old empire transformed. Representative Minji stood at the grand podium, holding the new treaty. "Today, we sign the Seoul Imperial Accord," she announced. "This marks the beginning of a new age for our galaxy." Dr. Hansol stepped forward with a small quantum device. She placed it on a special stand near the podium. When she turned it on, the device connected to their network of stars. Above the crowd, a great hologram appeared, showing all the stars under Earth's influence glowing softly. "With this treaty," Sungho said, "Earth will share its quantum technology with all worlds in the galaxy. Every civilization will learn to work with their own stars, to create clean energy for all their needs." Admiral Du Hyun spoke next. "The Empire will no longer rule through force. Instead, we will be guides and teachers, helping worlds grow strong together. Earth's scientists will work with ours to spread knowledge throughout the galaxy." The crowd murmured with excitement. Many of them had already seen the benefits of Earth's technology. Worlds that once fought over energy now had more than they needed. Poor colonies that once depended on the Empire were learning to power themselves. Minji raised her hand for quiet. "There is one more announcement," she said. "The Imperial Council has chosen a new leader, someone who saw the truth about Earth when others refused to believe." Admiral Du Hyun stepped forward. The crowd applauded as Minji placed the seal of the Supreme Counselor around his neck. His first action would be to sign the treaty with Earth. As Du Hyun and Sungho signed the treaty, Dr. Hansol watched from nearby. She thought about how far they had come. Earth had kept its secret for 20 years, preparing carefully, never letting pride or fear push them into revealing their power too soon. "The galaxy will never be the same," Professor Taiwan said quietly beside her. He had flown up from Earth to watch the ceremony. "That's good," Hansol replied. "The old way of conquest and control needed to end. Now we can all grow together." The ceremony ended with a beautiful display. Through Earth's quantum network, 1,000 stars pulsed with light in perfect harmony. But this time, it wasn't a show of power. It was a celebration of peace, a signal of hope for the future. As the crowds began to leave, Ambassador Sungho found Dr. Hansol. "Ready to go home?" he asked. She smiled and nodded. Earth's mission was complete. They had changed the galaxy not through war or threats, but by offering something better: knowledge, power, and true partnership. The Empire had trembled when Earth's sun moved. But in the end, it wasn't the movement of stars that changed everything. It was the simple choice to use power wisely, to help instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy. That was humanity's greatest achievement, and now the whole galaxy would share in it.